they would talk about how to gear the service, how to get the people to give more, and then the things that they'd done that they would do outside of church.
Faith and Failures Podcast.
We got a different setup today. So some of you have been following the podcast for a while before there's even a live stream situation. You know that my main thing I did when I first started out, kind of in my mind, the first chapter of the entire podcast was interviewing people. Like I almost interviewed once or twice or sometimes 3 times every week. So if anybody ever wants to be interviewed like you're going to see today in just a second, we can also do it online, where we can do a Skype or Zoom situation. But my whole, I guess you would say, burden for starting this podcast was bringing unity back to the body, like not divided by denomination, but people just searching for truth together. So a part of that searching for truth, and if you don't know God, you need to hear stories from people that didn't know God, didn't care about God, didn't want anything to do with God in their life, but came to a very real place in their life where God showed up and made himself really known. And I'm a product of that. I am one of those people. One of my very first episodes was talking about my story and where God brought me from and the meth addiction and all that stuff. So that's my heart. It's, most of you know, I'm a pastor as well. So that's my heart as a pastor, to reach those that are lost and get the message of Jesus Christ to them. So recently here in our church, my man, Kenny. So he's got a story. This is Kenny Ford.
Hey, everybody.
He's ready to tell his story. So when I was talking to you about all this, I said I kind of want you to start back at the beginning. So how far back you want to go?
Well, I guess we can start at the beginning, since some things need to be shared that kind of goes along with my life and turn me into the person that I am. As far back as, when I was going to be born, I guess you can say, I tell everybody, I guess God had a purpose for me, because in a way I wasn't even supposed to be here. And I say that because, I've got my other siblings that are older than me that, so my mom and dad had them, and then all within a year of each other, seemed like. And then there was during that, after Mike, my brother Mike, my dad decided to have a vasectomy. So Kenny Ford wasn't going to exist. And so 6 years later, my mom pops up pregnant. And I can understand, my dad
wait a minute.
he thought the worst,
Yeah.
So it caused conflict and everything. And my mom, being the sweet, sweet person that she is, she begged him to go get a test of, back in the 60s, whatever test they had, but she begged him to do that. And, I guess he used that as a crutch, so I was probably barely a year old, and he decided that it was best for him to leave all of us on Christmas Day.
And how many of there are you?
There's 5 of us. So there was 4 that got to enjoy them together for several years. And so I don't remember, him being around as them being together. But my mom worked really hard and kept us all together, as one group. And so, growing up and not having, a dad in my life, came with a lot of struggles.
Yeah.
And, if you've never been without a dad in your life, it might be hard for you to understand. But if you are one that grew up without that mom or dad in your life, it's a deep hole, inside of you. And so I'd always just heard, that my dad was an alcoholic and left us, and, didn't know much about him or anything. But I knew I had an emptiness, and I struggled. But I did have a stepdad, because my mom had met him and got with Sarge. I was probably a year and a half old, so I always had a male figure.
Now, when you were going through all this and the separation and all that stuff, were your parents in church, Christians at all? Was God in the picture at all, or y'all just raised?
No, we were just now later in life, my mom, I don't know how much she took the other kids to church.
Yeah.
But I know after they started moving on, because there was a 6-year gap between me and Mike, and even more between the other ones, then my stepdad and my mom had a son of their own. And so it was just me and him at home together for a while. And then they started going to church some and trying to take us to Assembly of God Church and different things. But I was a teenager at that point, so I was rebelling.
You already had some bad seed.
Yeah, I already had some. Yeah, didn't want to go, didn't want to be there.
Yeah. But
now having the stepdad that I had, he's passed on. He was a good provider. We never went without food. We never went without clothes. We never went without a roof over our head. So he was a good provider. But we grew up, he was a sergeant out of the Army, so he treated us like soldiers.
Yeah.
And, in some things it was good in life to learn that structure, because he always said, your word is all you have in this life, and you better keep it good. So he distilled them things in us of that nature. But there was no tender love, no put your arm around, your son and take you places or do this or do that. And so we learned very early that if you didn't want to be in trouble or made to do certain things, when you got up, you left the house and you didn't come home, until dark.
And you were allowed to do that?
We were allowed to do that.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. My mom, bless her heart, keeping up with everybody, she never knew where we were during the day or what we were doing.
Really?
It was just out of sight, out of mind kind of deal. And we done anything and everything we wanted to.
My mom wouldn't let that fly.
and,
but then again, circumstances.
And when she hears us talk now, the stuff that we went through and things that we've done, she said, I can't believe y'all done that.
Nobody wants to believe their little baby their kids would do something.
But when we were going to church, a little bit, it was weird. Even though I was rebelling, I always seemed that I felt a tug from God.
Yeah.
In a special way. And, didn't understand it at the time or anything. And, and so when I look at different things throughout my life that's happened, the devil, and when it started off with my dad having a vasectomy, me not even supposed to be here, and then I'm here.
Yeah.
And we find out later in life, because there was no test done, I just had to believe my mom and trust her. But later in life, then he had another son, Shane, with another lady. And
there's your test.
Yes.
That one'll stick.
He looks just like the Fords, and I look like my brother, so...
You can't run from it. When y'all start coming into church, man, I was like, wait.
Yeah.
Ford. I know.
Right. And so there was several different things, and I'll move forward and then come back to a little bit. But so from not even supposedly to be born, and then there's been several different things in my life that almost took my life. And so God seen fit for me to be born, and he seen fit to let me survive these incidences. One of them was in 2009, my colon ruptured inside of me, and I didn't know it, and I just thought I had a stomach ache. And so I'm pretty tough and just high tolerance of pain, so I didn't think that much about it. And I went on to work. I didn't call Shelly, didn't tell her nothing. And I come home about 4 or 5 o'clock that day, and I come in and I told her, I said, babe, I said, I've had a stomach ache all day and I'm going to take a shower and go to bed. And she made a joke and she said, Kenny, if you're not going to eat supper, you need to go to the hospital. And we laughed at
Something is wrong.
Right, because she said, something's wrong with you. And I said, no, my stomach hurts. I'll be all right.
Yeah.
So I take a shower and I go to bed, and I never woke up or anything during the night. She come to bed sometime or another, but about 3 a.m., she said she could feel my heart beating through the whole bed. And by then, when she tried to wake me up, I was already delirious and just about gone. I was so septic from my stool spilling inside of me all day.
Wow.
It's no different someone stabbing you in the stomach and you trying to survive it.
Yeah.
You know? So she didn't even call the ambulance. Her and my youngest daughter got me in the truck. She rushed me to the hospital, and they run me through. And at that point, I couldn't respond to them. I couldn't move or anything, but I was laying there and I could hear the surgeon. And he asked her, he said, do you have kids? She said, yeah, we got 2 daughters and a young grandbaby. He said, well, listen, here's what we're going to do. He said, I don't want to alarm you, but I'm going to pray for him and I'm going to open him up. But he said, you need to tell them to come up here and kiss him goodbye before I take him in, because I've never seen anyone survive this many hours being this septic.
Wow.
And so I heard all that. So I'm sitting there and I said, all right, God, I mean, if you're through with me on earth, I mean, I can't do much about it. I understand. I said, but if you're not, I sure would like to hang around a little while so my kids grow up and,
Yeah.
you know, and see my grandbaby.
And how old were your kids about this time?
Sierra had just had Emery, so I guess she was 18 or 19.
Yeah.
And then Kayla's 3 years younger than her. So that was that part of my life. So, and then I faded out. After that, they put me out, rushed me in. And I'd never been in, as far as I know, I don't think I've ever been in the hospital overnight for anything my whole adult life. And
I guess I hadn't either.
And
It's serious. They keep you overnight.
Yeah. So I stayed 6 days in the hospital, but Shelly said I was out like for 3 days, and they had me on morphine and everything. And so when I started coming to, I wasn't sure. I questioned myself because I was laying there and it was like I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't open my eyes. It was solid dark. And I thought, man, I done went to hell.
It's like, why do I feel so?
I really thought I went to hell. And so all of a sudden I could start, it was getting brighter in there, and I could start hearing some voices in the background.
Kind of everything was
fading back in.
Huh.
Yeah. And so I was out like that for about 3 days. And during then, I didn't know what I was doing. Shelly said a pastor had come by to see me, and I cussed him out.
And like a person, like a hospital pastor? Like,
no, I mean, it was a preacher that we kind of knew.
Oh, okay.
And my mom had come by to see me, and they said that I was cussing her and different ones. And I tried to tell them I was sorry, and they said, well, you know, from abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And
yeah. They like that scripture.
Yes. But I was out of my mind, so I wasn't held accountable for that. So
yeah.
But anyway,
I've heard some stories.
That was one incident. And then when I was called I felt a calling to preach, you know, I went evangelizing for a little while.
Now hold on, let's slow down a little bit. Now how old were you when you and Shelly got together? I know you said she couldn't leave the house unless
she was like 15 and a half.
Yeah.
And so they wouldn't take her away from the house until she turned 16.
Okay.
And so there's 4 years.
So you're a patient man is what you're saying.
It was only a few months where I could date her away from the house. But I went over there 7 days a week.
Well, yeah. Full-time job trying to rein that in.
Right. So since we shot forward, let me back to my childhood. You know, so many different things that happened, but probably the worst thing that I struggled with my whole life was, you know, one, I didn't have that real dad in my life, so I had that empty hole. And I guess, I don't know if it's from military or what, but see, we grew up in East Texas right here, but my mom and stepdad moved us so much that I never went to the same school twice.
Yeah.
Ever. And till
So you never repeated a year? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, right. So
That's a lot of moving.
it's a lot of moving. I mean, it's a wonder one of us boys didn't become house movers, or
So
a moving company.
it's just in you.
But so I struggled so much because we couldn't settle in, and every school I went to, they were all on a different level,
Yeah.
and I could never get caught up. So I just accepted the fact that I was dumb. I literally, I believed that I couldn't be taught. I thought I was a really dumb, because I didn't know we were the only ones that moved around. I thought everybody moved around. I mean, it wasn't aware to me
Right.
that we were the only ones that were doing it.
You're not living in anybody else's house, so you just think everybody else is doing
Right.
it. Yeah.
And so we just went with the flow. And so every school I went to, even when I was little, I just had to learn how to fight and struggle.
Because you're always a new kid getting
I was
picked
a
on.
new kid, and and so I carried this throughout my adult life, that I was real standoffish.
Yeah.
And I'm always been extremely territorial. What's mine is mine, and you're not taking it from me.
Right.
And because every time we moved, we lost stuff, and we,
And also with that many siblings.
yes, yes. But I tell you what, we could pack up in an instant
I bet you can.
and be gone to another place. I mean,
Yeah, built-in movers. That was kind of smart on their part.
yeah, yeah. And Sarge, he didn't know how to correct us in a right way. So
And is that what you called him? Like
Yeah.
that was the
yeah,
all y'all
Sarge out
called
of
it?
the Army, so he
Huh.
Sarge to us, yeah. And so we didn't get whippings, we got beatings.
Yeah.
And now his son didn't, but
Really?
we did. And
So he had a kid that lived with y'all too?
well, him and my mom had one 4 years after.
Oh, okay, that kid. Okay,
Yes.
okay. So the one that was by him, he didn't.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so having to move around like that and start over, I had to fight every day. And then I was, I could never catch up. I always thought, I was just dumb and just had to struggle my whole life with everything. And so, I hate it, but I carry that over to my adult life.
So when your mom and your stepdad, when they got married, was God involved at all?
No,
Okay.
no.
So military was your religion, pretty much. I mean, that was your life.
Yeah, it was, well, he wasn't in the military when he got with us. He just carried all the traits over to moving. He moved just to move. He didn't move because we had to. So he was already retired from the military. Yes.
What?
I know it's confusing, but they continue to move us around nonstop.
So when you say they, you didn't mean military. You were talking about them.
Yes. No, he was already out of the military. Yeah.
That just,
Yeah, I know.
which, was he from military?
Yeah, he even lied about his age when he was a kid to go in 2 or 3 years early. You could get away with it back then.
Yeah.
And so he just served the whole 30-year career. And
Oh, someone commented on your, I got to know Sarge when he became a changed man. It's on Facebook, so it doesn't show me who said it,
okay.
but
Yeah, and thank God
you-
he did change later in life. But through that,
came to God and changed, or
Yes.
just changed?
yeah, he came to God
Okay.
and changed. But through that, see, I raised my 2 girls, me and Shelly, and I raised them where, I hate to say it, but Shelly was the disciplinary in our family, because I would correct the girls, but I never have spanked them.
Yeah.
And I've never done anything because I never wanted them to feel the pain
Yeah.
from a man that I felt.
You probably felt a lot of fear too.
Yes.
Nobody wants their kids to feel that way when you walk into a room.
Right.
Well, some do, but I mean,
Yeah.
So
And
now, when you said that he would beat you, did you mean with fist, or he would just like slap you around, or what we talking about beating?
Belt,
Like you were a man?
fist.
Hey, whatever he wanted,
Slap.
whatever he felt like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my older brother, Jerry, you've met him
Yeah.
at church. I mean, there was times that he jumped out of a window with blood just running out of his ears and stuff from being beat. And, you know, it was pretty rough, pretty rocky. And, I mean, I'm not used to being this open and this, you know, out there. But, I mean, he beat our mom to a pulp multiple times. I mean, me and my brother Mike, and Mike, he contemplated killing Sarge several times. He had a butcher knife picked out,
Yeah.
and we stopped him one day down the hall. He was actually going to stab Sarge in the back, and we stopped him from doing that because our mom was just lifeless, getting beat, and you know I was still pretty young, and it was just.
Now, was he drinking and then beating, or he just did it?
He drank, but not all the time. He wasn't alcoholic like our real dad was.
Yeah.
Now, our real dad was an alcoholic, but my mom said he never raised a hand to her. His fault was being drunk all the time and chasing other women. That was his downfall. Other than that,
Wow.
they said he was a really, really good man. You know, and then Sarge held us together, but we saw the bad side. So growing up, all we knew was fighting, beating, screaming, hollering. You know, it was a daily deal.
Really?
And, you know, I remember when I was a kid, you know, and getting teenager, you know, I remember just praying to God and saying, God, I don't want to live like that. So if you can't send me one of your angels, and you can't give me someone that I can set on a pedestal and just give her the world and love her and take care of her, then I don't want anybody. And I remember begging him, you know, please send me that angel, please. And so I started, I'm probably jumping around a lot. So,
No, that's fine.
so we started going to my oldest my oldest sister, Donna, and her husband, Joe, at the time, started going to Brother Carnley's church there in Gladewater, Church of God.
Shelly said, hi, baby.
And
Shelly.
so they started going to church there. So I moved in with them.
Now, who say this again? Who was it?
Donna
Donna? Okay.
and her
Okay.
husband, Joe.
So you're how old at this time?
I am still probably at that point, probably middle school, high school.
Oh, so you're pretty young then.
Yes.
How much older is she than you?
Donna, see, there's 6 years between me and Mike.
I guess I didn't realize there was that many years between you.
Probably 8 years.
Okay.
8 years between us. So I moved in with them and started going to Gladewater Church of God, and that's where Shelly and her family was going. And I didn't even realize me and Shelly before that, well, we were going to the same school at Union Grove School.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Union Grove School is the only school that I got to go to twice.
Really?
And that was 9th and 10th grade. And I'm going to say something a little bit embarrassing. I've never told anyone but my immediate family, but if I'm putting it out there, I'm just going to share it. With my struggle of feeling dumb, we moved around so much I couldn't catch up. They didn't have kindergarten when I was little. They started you in the first grade.
Yeah.
I don't know how many schools I went to in the first grade. But I went to the first grade 3 times.
Really?
And I know that sounds, so that's why I thought I was dumb. Every time they moved me, they said he can't advance to the 2nd grade because he hadn't learned what he's supposed to learn in the 1st grade. And I guess it was easier for them to just hold you back, and my mom agreed for them to hold me back.
Mm.
So I guess being that young, I didn't realize at the time I went 3 times, but I did. So
Now, did that set you back 3 years from graduating then? Were you 3 years older than everybody? Oh, man, that would have been embarrassing when you got older.
see, and,
Something's not your fault either.
Right.
Piled on top of it.
and that's another thing. I didn't graduate. I went to school for 12 years. Maybe 13.
I got a friend. He did the same. He failed a grade. I think it was in high school, And so he said he was a 13th grader.
Now, I don't know how I didn't fail after the first grade somehow, but I fell through the cracks. And then somehow I don't know how they pushed me along, or we moved in just enough time. They didn't want to mess with me.
She said she didn't like you then.
Yeah, that's true. Now, when she said she knew me in school, I didn't know she existed there. I'd never seen her. I didn't know about her then, because I was smoking marijuana every day and doing a few, drinking and doing a few things that, I shouldn't have been doing, but I did. And we started.
High school or grade school?
Yeah, high school.
Okay.
So when we started going, I moved in with Donna and Joe, and we started going to Gladewater Church of God, even though I felt tugs from the Lord and everything, I'd really never truly gotten saved. No one ever walked me through that. And so I got saved there, and, Joe was becoming a preacher and a pastor of a church. And, so, I felt, a really good connection with God, and, wasn't sure what he wanted me to do and all of that.
And at this point, you're feeling this tug. Have you already accepted Jesus, or you didn't really know what was?
I didn't know what was going on. I knew every time I was in church, I felt a special, and maybe everybody felt that. I don't know, but I know it was special for me. And the kind of person I am, and I'm still that way today, I make God show me, without a shadow of a doubt, because, I'm such a real person, and if I love someone or I want to do something, I give it my all. I mean, I go all or nothing.
Yeah.
And, so I don't know, am I jumping around or
No, go ahead.
So going through all that stuff, I really, really struggled as a kid growing up with all that. And, and I carried it into my adulthood, and the anger, I guess I don't know where all the anger came from.
Yeah.
But it was so built up inside of me that sometimes I didn't know how to control it. I didn't get in a normal fight. I mean, if you were going to fight me, it was to the death. We were going to, and
you didn't play by the rules, did you?
No.
Which, if you're fighting, what rules are there?
Right.
Win or lose.
Yeah.
Two choices.
And then when you're forced to fight, every school you go to, it changes you as a person. And
now, when you say forced to fight, was it because maybe you had been picked on, or was it because that's the language you spoke from being done that way at home?
See,
come on, baby, you okay?
I'm not sure, what all it consists of, but I go back to, say, junior high, because we didn't own homes. We rented everywhere.
Yeah.
And so they moved us to Spring Hill one time, and I don't want to call that school a preppy school, but when I went there was a doctor's kids, and and they'd all been friends their whole life.
I thought that's what it was over there now.
Yeah. And I've always been real quiet. I'm a loner. If you'll leave me alone, I'm great.
Yeah.
But these kids begin to pick on me, and I'd give them every chance to back off. Man, I just want to exist.
Right.
Because I hated school. I didn't want to be there. I had to be there. And so I went up to the water fountain. I was getting a drink, and this kid come over, and he grabbed me from behind, and he was going to jerk me away from the water fountain. He said he drinks first and then I do. Well, so I just latched onto the side and told myself, if he moves me, he's moving the water fountain too. And he couldn't pull me off of it. So he got embarrassed in front of his friends. And so I tried to tell him, I said, man, just leave it alone. It's okay. And so after that, somehow they got my phone number to our house. And they would call the house, and I tried to tell my mom, said, what do they want? I said, oh, no, they want me to play or hang out, whatever. And I don't feel like going. Well, they were on the phone telling me to meet them somewhere. They wanted to fight me. And I didn't want to go, and they wouldn't quit. So finally, I just said, man, I've got to go do this. And
He's just like, well, I guess I'm about to go whoop somebody.
so,
You didn't try to take your bros or nothing?
no, because Mike and him had already 4 or 5 years older than me. They're moved off to the oil field, working in the oil field. Keith was smaller than me.
Yeah.
And so I was dumb enough to go down there and meet these guys. So I'm by myself, and there's like 3 or 4 of them. But they evidently didn't want to fight because they just want to stand around and talk. Well, I grew up, if you get in within striking distance,
If I can reach you.
if I can reach you, I'm going to get you. So I let him get a little bit too close, and one of his friends come up behind him, and I seen him coming and pushed him into me. So when I seen him coming, I just planted my feet, and I nailed him. So we rode down this hill, but the anger built up in me. Once I get going, you don't turn it off real quick.
Yeah.
And so I kind of blacked out, and I beat him, and then I grabbed this guy, and we was by this chain link fence, and I grabbed his hair, and I just started raking his face down one side of the fence and back down the other side of the fence. Finally, they hollered enough, and they pulled me off that I stopped. You know, and I'm sorry that had happened,
Yeah.
but I told them they didn't want to go there.
Y'all kept calling me, and I picked up the phone.
And, you know, I was never good in sports or anything because I never was anywhere to learn anything.
Right.
Okay. So at this point, these guys were still trying to push my buttons, and we were in gym class one day, and I'll never forget Clay. I can't remember his last name, but Clay was a big boy, and everybody was scared of Clay, and the coach was going to have us all wrestle each other. And man, I'm sitting there sweating, and he looked over, he said, Coach, I want Kenny. I said, man, and back in the day, my name was Skinny Kenny. Not today, but it was Skinny Kenny. But I had something inside of me that I knew I had to stand up for myself.
Yeah.
And so I told myself when he picked me, I mean, it's like, oh man, here we go. But I knew that if I let him just take me, that everybody's going to think they could.
Yeah.
And I fought with everything inside of me, and Clay could not pin me down. So that made him mad. And so, but after that, when Clay could not pin me down, they all backed off.
Yeah.
And so I decided to play baseball one year. I couldn't hit anything. I even got hit in the head out in the outfield trying to catch a ball. You know, one of them deals.
He didn't feel a thing.
And so my mom had came, and she was sitting in the bleachers, and I got up there to bat, and I struck out like always. And when we went home, you know, I heard her telling someone at the house, you know, them kids, they were saying when Kenny was up there batting, said, man, he can't play no sports, but that boy can fight. So, you know, we grew up like that, and
Should have been in hockey then.
I guess.
Then you can go out there and skate and beat some people up.
But back at the church, you know, when I moved in with Donna and we started going to church there, and I gave my life to Christ, and someone was joining the church one day. I still didn't notice Shelley, I don't guess. Someone was joining the church, and everybody was walking by to shake their hands, and Shelley and her family come walking through, and Joe hit me in the leg. He goes, man, look at Shelley. What do you think about her? And I thought,
Hold on, I gotta stop. Is that
and so right when I seen her, it's like, wow, I'd never seen her before.
Yeah.
You know? And so I started going to her house and every day, and I mean, man, it was just
every time the doors were open.
every time the doors are open. And I remember our first actual date when I could actually take her away from the house.
Yeah.
We went to the big Gregg County Fair.
Yeah.
And so I took her out, and I guess in our conversations, I guess I had the place mixed up because she's always right. And she said when I took her back to her house, which I thought it was my house, well, why would it be my house? And I leaned over and gave her a little bitty kiss. Well, fireworks went off in my head. I mean, it was like, I'm marrying this girl.
Yeah.
She didn't know that, or she didn't think that. But anyway, I mean, God gave me the angel that I needed in my life as a human being to help put all the pieces that were broken and thrown to the side in my life back together. And I'm not going to lie. You know, dating her and marrying her early in life, I put her through a lot. For me trying to learn how to love somebody and to be loved.
Yeah.
You know, because as sad as it is, all of us siblings, we all live in the same area. We'd only see each other like twice a year, my brothers and sisters, twice a year. And none of us grew up telling each other we loved each other. It was awkward. I could tell a stranger I loved them easier than I could tell my own siblings. And it took all the way to this year, brother, this year, for all of us to start telling how much we love each other. So when I met Shelly and started going to her house, man, I'm thinking, boy, I want to get involved in this. Well, I thought they were weird because they loved each other so much.
Talking about like the parent situation and the family and everything? Really?
And the kids, they kissed each other. They told each other they loved each other when they showed up, when they left. And I'm thinking, man, you don't kiss your family. There's something wrong. But literally, I thought it was weird.
Yeah.
But through this, Shelly has shown me how to love and how to, and I'm so grateful that, you know, I wasn't the kind of person my dad was or the kind of person my stepdad was, that God gave me an angel and then gave me the ability to hang on to her and to keep her.
Now, when y'all first got married, was there any hint of what you used to be? Like you said, you put her through a lot to be able to learn how to love her and let her love you. Were you still like really rough around the edges, or like what was it that?
Yeah.
At the beginning, what was it? Because I'm only seeing you from this angle, so I don't know exactly what.
I still carried anger.
Yeah.
Everywhere I went. I mean, our first year of marriage, I mean, because I hated my jobs, I hated everywhere I was in different things. So I was just angry inside of me.
Yeah.
And so I'd work all day, and when I come home, she's a normal young wife and just wanted to ask, how was your day, or how was this, or how was that? And that was too clingy for me. And I remember she was kind of tugging on my shirt. It was a Friday, and I come in and she was just kind of tugging on my shirt a little bit. Just, hey, how was your day? What do you want to do today, or whatever? And I reached up and I literally just ripped my shirt off of my body, and I said, here, just take the shirt. And then I was so mad at myself for treating her that way for no reason. There was a plaque hanging on the wall, and I just grabbed it and I just started banging it until it just started falling apart. And then then I put my fist through the wall. Just built up stupid anger for no reason.
Now, did she know that of you? Did you show that at all when you dated, or did you lock it down quick enough where she couldn't think about it?
No, because we dated for 2 years.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yes. So she knew I struggled with just holding my hand.
Yeah.
She knew I struggled, with the anger issues, because there've been times anybody's gonna fuss and argue over little things, and little things. I had a brand new truck one time, and she had got mad about something, and she said, "I'll just get out of the truck and walk." Well, no, you're not going to do that.
No, ma'am, you ain't.
And I remember I slammed the door or something. She said, "That's a new truck." And I just beat all the way down the side of that brand new truck to show her this is just a truck.
That's an expensive lesson.
Honestly, God had to blind Shelly
to
allow her to stay with me. through all that. And, you know, I'm so grateful that she stayed and endured it, but I'm so, you know, disappointed in myself for how long I carried it through our adult life. You know, of how I grew up. I let that, probably any normal person would have left something, you know, like that. Cause she'd never been around anything like that, but she loved me unconditionally. And, you know, I've never in my life hit Shelley. I've never done anything like that, but you know, during that first year of marriage, we would argue and everything, and she got to where she wanted to stomp off and go to the bedroom and shut and lock the door. Well, you're not allowed to do that with me, because Kenny was dumb enough to take the door off the hinges and hand it to you.
Yeah.
And I ain't talking about using the hammer to pry it off. I'm talking about beat the door in. And
you got to get something out of it too. You got to be able to beat something up and then make your point.
Yeah. And what was weird about me was I only become satisfied once she got upset. Once she got mad or upset, then I was okay.
Like you felt like you accomplished your goal.
Yeah, it's weird. I probably need to go see Bill, but anyway.
Well, I'm gonna try to get him to be on the podcast too. Maybe we could do a counseling session on the live stream.
Yeah, that'd be good. So I was going to teach Shelley a lesson, and
it's always a good place to start with your wife.
So we had a couch that was sitting out in the middle of our living room floor. So I told myself the next time she's going to get mad and walk off to that bedroom, I'm going to teach her a lesson. And so the argument happened, and she's going to storm off. So she would be standing on the back side of your couch, heading towards the bedroom. I was on the front side of it. She wasn't even 100 pounds. So I reached over, and I snatched her, and I drug her over the back of that couch where she's laying on the couch. And I told myself, I'm going to teach her a lesson. So I reared back like I was going to hit her to straighten her out. And her eyes got really big, and she, pow, pow, she hit me in the nose with one fist and in the lip with the other, and bloodied both of them. First time I ever had a bloody nose and lip at the same time in my life. And she looked straight at me and she said, next time I'll kill you. And she meant it. That fixed all that.
And then he felt deeper in love. He was like, that's my kind of woman. That's funny.
But, man, she's the best thing, other than get saved, is the best thing that's ever happened.
So let's do and it's not a turn, it's actually a step. So if people coming into this video, they're watching and they're looking at the title, there's so how long ago, we won't go to throw people under the bus, but if you want to give a little bit of detail of, so when you and Shelley got married, were y'all in church and saved, or what were you doing then? You were in church and saved? Okay. She commented. Always say that. She's putting your business out there while you're putting hers out there.
I know.
So, okay. So y'all get married. How far after when y'all get married do y'all start having kids? Is it pretty soon, or y'all wait a little bit, or?
Yes. Sierra, I think we were married a year, a little over, when we had Sierra.
Yeah. Well, y'all start having kids. Are y'all still going to Gladewater Church of God, or did y'all start going somewhere else? Or has it been a while since you even been there?
Yeah, Brother Cornley had moved off.
Yeah.
And
that's right, because he used to be over there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we were still going to church because Sierra we didn't have Kayla yet. Sierra was still just a real little bitty baby.
Right.
And we were going to church, and we were really trying to do the right thing, going to raise her in church and everything. And this is probably where church hurt started for me and Shelley. So this pastor had taken over, and so we were going there, and back then, I mean, there wasn't any money to be made, you know, so we didn't make hardly any money. And it come down to the point to where we needed, I looked at Shelly, I said, we can either pay our tithes this week or we can buy formula and a little bit of diapers for Sierra. And, you know, and then I told Shelly, I said, well, listen, God is a merciful God. I'm not going to watch my baby not eat.
Yeah.
So I'll catch my ties up. I'll do something on the side, or I'll do something, and I'll catch my ties up.
Yeah.
So I went and bought some formula and some diapers for Sierra. So we go to church that Sunday, and we didn't pay our tithes. We didn't have the money. And service wasn't even over yet. And, it was just barely over, because they'd already, everybody's out in the foyer. And that pastor come up and put his arm around me, and he said, Kenny, he said, I noticed you didn't pay your tithes. And for one, it embarrassed me. And so I was trying to explain to him, sir.
Wait, that was the Sunday you didn't pay?
Yes.
And he already knew?
And he already knew.
I'm not going to comment on that. But
he already knew.
Just as a rule at my church, where I pastor at, I don't know who pays and who don't unless they're on leadership. And then I can call them out, because that's our rules. But other than that, that's weird to me.
Yeah. So I looked
Now, were you in leadership? I'm sorry.
No.
So you were just an attendee that was going there?
Yeah. And so when he told me that, and I said, sir, I said, let me explain to you. I said, I will make it up. I said, but I had to get some diapers and formula for my baby.
Yeah.
And he said, no, let me tell you what you do. He said, next time you pay them tithes and you let God supply it. Okay. Yes, sir. So I don't know if it was the next week or a couple of weeks went by, we were in the same predicament. So I looked at Shelly and I said, I'm not getting scolded again. So we're going to pay our tithes. We're not buying Sierra no formula. We're not buying no diapers. And me and her didn't have anything either. We paid the tithes. The preacher, or not one red soul, came to our rescue. Not that we ever wanted handouts, ever, but nobody. And I guess God laid it on my mom and Shelly's mom's heart, because they come to, I can't even remember now if they came to Shelly or what they done. They gave us some money, some food, something, but they took care of us. And I know that's God's way of taking care and providing for us. But being young, married couple like that, it
would have been nice if it came from the church. I mean,
right.
You'd think.
And because it had gotten, during that time in our life, it had gotten down to where there was, after we bought Sierra some diapers and stuff and done everything, there was one can of tuna fish and one box of macaroni and cheese is all we had. And Shelly took it and she mixed it up and she divided it out in little bitty pieces. And she stayed home with the baby, and I worked. And I remember lying to her and telling her that I didn't want to eat. I wasn't hungry.
Yeah.
So that Shelly would eat and take care of the baby. And so, that's where and then, so the preacher, that same preacher had asked me, because he knew I was a painter at Rest Car and different things, and he said, man, would you like to make some extra money and come paint the outside of my house? And I said, yes, sir, I would love that.
Yeah.
And
I got some tithes to pay.
And and maybe it was my fault for not seeing what he would pay me up front. I had a job, so I didn't even ask. I was so grateful.
Any extra money
was better than nothing.
Yeah.
And so I went by there and I painted the house and everything and got done. And, this is the same preacher that he would preach to us that we were going to burn in hell if we went to the movie theater, and we were going to burn in hell if we listened to country music or anything besides gospel music. I had us scared to death as young people.
Makes sense.
So when I got in his truck to move it to paint his house, Hank, why do you drink?
Nuh-uh.
Was playing. And it like, oh man. And then me and Shelly went to the movies, and the very guy that was preaching that to us walked right down the aisle and didn't even see us and sat 2, 3 rows in front of us.
So this is like active messages. It's not like from he used to preach that way and he's changed his ideas.
Preaching it right now, and then, yeah. Sunday school teacher also. Yeah. So that was little, and that's, that was little church hurt. So, and I hate it, but from that point on, we didn't go to church real solid.
Yeah.
We would go a little while and not go for a while and things like that. So when you hear Sierra say that, she's just now learning certain things and
how old was she and the girls during this time?
During this time, because it was off and on, they were pretty young. Trying to think, because when they came to us, we started going back to church again, and they came to us and they was ready to get saved. They were probably, Shelly would know all this.
She's in the comment.
Yeah, she might send it to you.
Hey, Shelly, how old were the girls during this time? It's on a delay, so man. See what she says. She said Gilmer Assembly. I should probably comment in a minute. It'll pop up. But I was just curious, kind of. I'm sure it was in their earlier years. They wouldn't have been at home. But
so when they were young teenagers, or right before teenagers, and we started going back to church pretty steady, and I felt the tugging for God wanting me to preach still. Because I'd stopped, when I was younger, I went evangelizing.
How old were you when you started doing it?
When I started evangelizing, before me and Shelly got married, I was probably 19, 18 or 19.
Young blood.
Yeah. I mean, it was instant. Because
how did that come about, though? Like,
see, I mean, I can share that with you if you want me to.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we were all going to Gladewater Church of God. And we were having a prayer meeting, and see, God has to show me things specific. I can't say I heard a whisper, and God called me to preach or anything like that. So we were having a prayer meeting one night, and I felt impressed to go lay down in front of the altar and just lay there and pray. They dimmed the lights, and so I laid there and was just praying to God, and
when she was around 9 or 10.
Oh, okay. And all of a sudden, I was praying, and it's like everything went dark on me. The music faded out. I could hear everybody else praying, and that all started fading out. It was like I was in darkness, just sitting there. And all of a sudden, I seen a really bright light come on. And I can't say it was Jesus. I can't, but 2 hands reached down and picked me up off the floor and said, I want you to walk with me. And I said, okay. So we started walking down this path. And we were on this small path, and we're walking, and I noticed there was a fragrance of just, I really can't explain it. I've never smelled it since. There was a fragrance of purity, peace. Just, it's just hard to explain. And I said, where are we going? Because we had been walking for like 3 days down this path.
Was there anything on the path at all? Like anything to see, or was it just a path?
Just a path, and just like a light we were going towards.
You were just aiming towards it?
Yes.
Huh.
So we're walking down this path, and it seems like we were chit-chatting along the way, and we get to this door. And I said, what are we doing? And he says, I want to show you something. And he opens up the door, and there's this real long table. When I say a long table, there's a long table. And there's just a few people, but everyone had a glow on their face. I couldn't tell who they were.
Yeah.
But there was white people, brown people, black people, every race of people I could see. But they wasn't solid. They were here and there, and there was a bunch of empty chairs all around this table. And man, you could just smell the food. You could hear the laughter. It was just like joy. And I said, man, let's go. He said, no, you can't go in. I said, why? He said, it's not time. He said, you see that place right over there? I said, yeah. He said, that's your seat. But he said, you can't go right now. I said, no, but I want to. He said, no, you can't go right now. I said, why? He said, you see all these other empty seats? He said, I need you to go, and I need you to tell people, and I need you to help me fill these seats.
Wow.
And I said, Lord, no. No, I don't want to go back. I want to come in. He said, you can't come in. I'm not ready. Wow. And all of a sudden, what it took us 3 days to journey up to this door, instantly, I'm back in darkness. And I'm sitting there, and then I see that light again. And he said, now I want you to get up, and I want you to tell everybody else. I want you to prepare everybody else.
Wow.
What you've seen. And I was like, there's no way. And all of a sudden, the music started fading in.
Yeah.
I could hear the people. My brother-in-law, Joe, and Brother Carnley, I'm sure he still remembers this. They said they come over to try to pray for me. They said I was stiff as a board. 3 hours I was out, but I traveled for 3 days. They said 3 hours I was in a nonstop. They didn't know what was going on.
Wow.
And the Lord had took me on a journey to show me. And that's how God called Kenny. Now, I messed it all up. And I was so eager and so excited that I quit my job. I went to the next camp meeting, instantly lined up, booked up for almost a year, and could have booked up even more. I didn't know nothing.
Yeah.
All I knew is what God showed me.
You weren't contaminated.
And what God had laid on my heart.
Yeah.
My boss said, you're just going to quit your job. I said, yeah, I don't need it. I don't even know how, brother. They didn't have, I've never traveled on my own. I have separation anxiety really bad when I travel and different things.
But you didn't then?
It was God Almighty.
Yeah.
I had a car that probably should have never made it. And I never broke down one time, brother, Dallas or nowhere. There was no phones. There was no cell phones. There was nothing. And they didn't even have the little maps on the computer. They had just the big maps, and that's it. And
old school, baby, analog.
And I wasn't smart enough to read one, you know.
But you made it.
I don't know how I made it. Brother, when I think back right now, I think, how? It had to be strictly God and himself. So I went and held these revivals. Here, I'm just a kid.
So were you credentialed in the Church of God, or you just started?
No, I never. Yeah, they just.
You just had connection.
Oh, okay. Yes, they could. They would let me start, and then I would have to get.
That's cool.
So I was doing that, and you know how the devil works.
Yeah. Very well.
I'm the type person. If I'm in, I'm sold out. You're not going to get half of me.
Yeah.
You get all of me or nothing. And I thought I expected everyone else to be that way. If you was a pastor, I held you to a higher standard. And now I ain't gonna say every pastor that I stayed with was like this, but the majority, is sad to say, they were. They would talk about how to gear the service, how to get the people to give more, and then the things that they done that they would do outside of church that I actually seen, it was just heart-wrenching to know that they're living two lives,
Yeah.
you know, and I expected them to hold themselves to a higher standard, and it began to discourage me and let me down.
So you saw all this in the traveling around?
Yes.
Is that how you got all that information?
Yes. And then I knew I wanted to marry Shelley. And
Oh, so you hadn't married her yet when you started doing all
no, this is before we got married.
Okay.
But we were together. Out of our whole history, that's the only time that we were, and I guess she'll say we broke up, but I don't think we. But anyway, I took her ring.
You were dating the Lord for a period.
Yeah, I took her ring back and different things, and just thought my life was going a different direction or whatever. I was confused, and I was on the road, and I thought, man, I can't be out here doing this, and these people that they're not even. And I just got my eyes on man.
Yeah,
is what I done, and off of the go. So before I came back though,
she says you actually broke up with her.
I know, baby, I'm sorry. The last church that I went to, that I held a revival in, I went there and I preached the week, and the pastor really stressed how bad he needed help. How bad he needed someone there to.
Like to you, or just in a message, or what?
No, to me.
To you?
Yeah,
Okay.
He really would love for me to stay and help him out. And, I guess I was young. I didn't know which direction my life was going to go. I thought I was doing the right thing. And that's why I preached about my first message in your church, was you can be doing the right thing for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
So I thought staying there and helping him was what I was supposed to do. And at that moment, I got out of God's will for my life.
Faith and Failures Podcast.